Hello, Shalom Chavarim. My name is Dvorah Kalik, and I'm talking to you from Israel. I'm with Bless Israel Network, and we're now going to, as I promised, go through part 2 of our explanation or our sharing of our thoughts on Parsha Vayishlach, which is about Jacob's return to the land of Israel and his encounter with his brother Esau. So in part 1 of this week's Torah portion, we were discussing that Jacob's very clever strategy to actually divide his family into 2 camps could be why Judaism and Christianity separated from one another. It could have been a prophetic clue or portent of a future separation of Judaism and Christianity. But in this week's Torah portion, there's also a clue in the story that the reconciliation between the 2 brothers are the key to the return of our Messiah, Yeshua, and the final redemption. I'd like to explore this with you a little bit. The Chazal, or the Jewish sages, have identified the descendants of Esau or Edom with Rome and Christianity. Now, before you get upset with me, let's take a little time to explore this, and I think you'll understand why at the end of this that I have said that and why the sages felt that way. Let's turn for a moment to Numbers 20, starting at verse 14 through 21, and I'm going to read that. Moses sent, this is the journey, this is the recording of the journeys of the children of Israel from the time they left Egypt and traveled through the wilderness and ended up in the promised land. So this is one little section that I want to read to you. Moses sent emissaries from Kadesh to the king of Edom. So said your brother Israel, you know all the hardships that have befallen us. Our forefathers descended into Egypt, and we dwelled in Egypt many years. And the Egyptians did evil to us and to our forefathers. We cried out to Hashem, and he heard our voice. He sent an emissary and took us out of Egypt. Of course, this is referring to Moses. Now behold, we are in Kadesh, a city at the edge of your border. Let us please pass through your land. We shall not pass through your fields or vineyards, and we shall not drink your well water. On the king's road we will travel. We will not veer to the right or to the left until we pass through your border. And Edom said to him, you shall not pass through me, lest I come against you with the sword. So this is, actually let me continue reading on to verse 21. The children of Israel said to him, we shall go up on the highway, trying to convince Edom further that they weren't going to do any harm. They just wanted to pass through. The children of Israel said to him, we shall go up on the highway, and if we drink your water, I or my flock, I shall pay their price. Only nothing will happen. Let me pass through on foot. And he said, you shall not pass through. Then Edom went out against him with a massive throng and a strong hand. So Edom refused to permit Israel to pass through his border, and Israel turned away from near him. I'd like to strongly suggest to you that the spirit of Edom has dominated Christianity for the last 2,000 years. And so the Jewish people, just as they turned away from Edom in this situation, from being near to Edom, the Jewish people have turned away from being near to Christianity. The same Spirit is at work as was back then, and many Christians have been preventing Israel from passing through to get to her destiny. The majority of Christians think that God has rejected the Jewish people and that they have replaced her. Many have either sided with the Palestinians and do not believe the Jewish people have a right to their ancient homeland, or they just don't care about them at all. Christians participate in the BDS movement. That's the boycott, divest, and I forget what the S stands for, but it's really damaging to Israel and to Israeli products. They believe because, the Christians believe, because the majority of the Jewish people rejected Jesus as the Messiah, that all of the covenants have been made null and void. The Jewish Messiah has been replaced by, for lack of a better way of saying it, a Goyish one, a Gentile one, who abolished the Torah and started a new religion. Sadly, even though the Pope has declared anti-Semitism as wrong, and the Catholic Church, under him has made an apology to the Jewish people, still the Catholic Church continues to pressure Israel to take over control of Jewish holy sites here in the land that they claim are their own. This is what I mean by the Spirit of Edom. The Spirit of Edom is anyone or anything that keeps the Jewish people from achieving and from moving in their God-ordained destiny. In the verses that we just read in Numbers chapter 20, Moses was trying to bring what's called a tikkun in Hebrew, a repair, a reconciliation between Israel and Edom. But Edom would have none of it. Edom would not let Israel pass. Edom had an opportunity back then to assist Israel, but she refused. Edom has the same opportunity today. I'm not just talking about the physical descendants of Edom, which probably the majority of which, if there's any left, are gone. But we have a spiritual Edom that is existing in the Palestinians and in many of the Arab peoples. And sadly, it's existing spiritually among the majority of mainline Christians. The church is called to help Jacob or Israel, to run to him and to kiss him, just as Esau did in our Torah portion. When Christians recognize that they are grafted in to the root of the rich olive tree, which is Israel, and what Paul spoke about, the Apostle Paul or Rabbi Shaul spoke about in Romans 11, there is an awakening and a realization that we are called to be part of the greater Israel. We are called to leave Edom and assist Israel in her calling, to let her pass, so to speak. The Chazal, or the Jewish sages, say that Messiah, this is so interesting, Messiah is sitting at the gates of Rome. In the Babylonian Talmud, in Tractate Sanhedrin 98a, so that's like page or chapter 98, page A, there is a description of an encounter between the Messiah and Rabbi Joshua ben Levi, who was a student of Shimon bar Yochai. Rabbi Joshua finds himself in Rome, and there he finds a leper sitting at the gates of Rome with the poor and the sick. The leper is tying and untying his bandages, and Rabbi Joshua realizes, according to the story, that he is the Messiah. This is striking and parallels what it says about the suffering servant of the Lord described in Isaiah 53, and in particular in verse 4. It says this, "Yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted." That's exactly how a leper is described. Amazingly, there is also a description of wayward Israel that sounds remarkably similar to this in Isaiah chapter 1, verse 6. And it says, "From the sole of the foot even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but bruises and sores and raw wounds. They are not pressed out or bound up like in a bandage, or bound up, softened with oil." It would appear that our Messiah has become a leper in the place of Israel. But Israel recognizes him not. Why is that? Why does not Israel recognize the Messiah? Well, how could they? When Christianity has removed the Messiah from his Jewish context. He doesn't wear Jewish clothing. His brother, but he's put in Christian garb, and that's how his brothers see him. No wonder they think he's a false prophet and a false Messiah. He doesn't look Jewish in any way, shape, or form. We've spoken about this before. Like the story of Joseph, who was concealed from his brothers because he was dressed in Egyptian clothing, the Jewish Messiah is concealed from his brothers because he's dressed, so to speak, like a Christian. Christianity has done the exact same thing to him. This too is the spirit of Edom. It is the job of we who are the non-Jewish members of the body of Messiah to come out of Edom and to assist Israel by rescuing the leper Messiah who is sitting in the gates of Rome and bring him home to Israel, properly clothed, properly dressed, properly presented in a Jewish context. It's our job to present him as he is, as the New Testament depicts him, a Torah-keeping, tzitzit-wearing, kosher-eating, Shabbat-observant Jew to his Jewish brothers. He is one like them. Then Yeshua will no longer be viewed as a leper. This is what it looks like to reconcile with Israel, just as Esau ran to Jacob and kissed him. Esau made peace with his brother. In fact, it is amazing, though I suppose it shouldn't be surprising, that the gematria of Esau's name in Hebrew is 376. That's the numerical value of the letters in his name, which are the Ayin, Shin, and the Vav. Now, we all know what the Hebrew word for peace is. It's shalom. Well, guess what the gematria, the numerical value of shalom is? Equivalent to Esau's name, 376. This is a clue to us that this is what must happen before our Messiah can return. Jacob in the story is returning to the land. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Jacob represents the nation of Israel. And Esau is the spirit of Edom. It's the Christians. It's all, and even Muslims. It's all those who oppose Israel's destiny. The two camps that we talked about in part 1 must make peace and become one people. just as Yeshua prayed for in John chapter 17. He asked the Father to make us one. The word for one is echad. And Yeshua said, let them be one, echad, just as you, Father, and I are one, echad. How can we be one people when we are arguing, disrespecting the rabbis, and making our own way apart from the Jewish people? How can we be in unity when we're not following the Jewish calendar and keeping the Jewish feasts or saying Jewish prayers? There's nothing wrong with praying from your heart in the Spirit, but we're supposed to be looking like Israel. That means praying Jewish prayers or learning and practicing the Torah that applies to us. Do we honestly believe and think that we who were outside of the covenants and promises, that we non-Jews know more than the sages who came before us and have kept and preserved everything for 3,500 years? I'm also speaking to my fellow Messianic brethren. Really, we came so much later, you know. Do we really think that what's been preserved for us and what Yeshua upheld and valued and affirmed, that we can rewrite it and interpret it differently? And what about, also, Shaul said that the Jews are blinded, that Israel's blinded in part. Not the whole, not everything. And what about what Yeshua said in Matthew 23? He said, he told us, why did he do this? If we're not to be obeying it. He said that the Pharisees, which is called Rabbinic Judaism today, sit in the seat of Moses. Do what they tell you. Now, granted, he also said, don't do what they do. He was talking about those who are hypocritical. He was talking about those who he criticized, but he wasn't talking about all of them. Sitting in the seat of Moses means they have the authority to interpret and teach the Torah and the commandments. He just didn't want us to be hypocritical, as some of them were. He didn't want us to do our faith for show. And he didn't want us to forget about the heart matters as much as we do the external matters. They're just as important. But we are supposed to do what they tell us. How do we get around that one? The calling of the non-Jewish members of the body of Messiah is to learn from the Jewish people and return to true Messianic faith, true apostolic faith that Yeshua taught us and the disciples taught us, that's evident and spelled out in the apostolic scriptures or the New Testament. We need to stop disrespecting the sages and how they've interpreted the Torah. I'm not saying they're right about everything, but they're right, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many others, about a lot. And quite honestly, people, you have no idea of the richness that you're missing. We need to stop disrespecting the sages, as I said. We must join ourselves to Jacob and the faith and practice of the last 3,500 years. It is a journey, and it takes some study and learning, but we just need to begin. When we do that, when we start following the authentic Jewish Messiah, we will provoke his non-believing brothers to jealousy, or actually the real word is zealousness for their God and his ways. Then Esau and Jacob will be reconciled, and Yeshua, our Messiah, who we are all waiting for, will be able to return to his rightful place and begin his reign on earth the reign of the kingdom of heaven on earth, which we all long for and pray for. If you want to learn more about how to start this journey, of course you can listen to our teachings, but there are others who are more qualified and know more than I do and than we do at Bless Israel Network. And so what I want you to do is write to me at Devorah@blessisraelnetwork.com. That's DEVORAH@blessisraelnetwork.com. And I can recommend some excellent sources to you to get you a proper Messianic education. There's a lot of bad information out there. There's some good information in the internet, but there's a lot of, can I say it, error. Let's get to work, my friends, my fellow students, my fellow lovers of Yeshua. Let's get to work. The sooner we do, the sooner he will come. And the sooner our people, the Jewish people, will get to see him and experience the revelation that the guy that they thought looked like Esau, was wicked, was really their Messiah. May this happen soon and in our days. Litraot and Shabbat Shalom from Bless Israel Network.